Pathways Basecamp. Please help me welcome Patricia.
Well, good evening, everybody, and you're all very welcome. And it's lovely to see so many faces that I have seen around for a few years now, and I mean that in the really nicest possible way. It's great to see. I didn't actually say old faces now. I was very good, but it's great to see familiar faces. That's what I should have said. But it's also great to see so many new people that I don't know and have never met. And I see we have Shiva here from my own club in Balbriggan, and I know we have at least 2 people from Society, and I see a few people here from Clive and Ines, I think, from Norwich Speakers. So we have people from right across the district here tonight. Now, you know, the expression is going from the sublime to the ridiculous. But today I feel like I'm doing it the other way around, because at 7:30 a.m. this morning, I was over in my daughter's house minding the youngest grandchild. It was last minute because the child was sick, and I was over there. So I have spent my day on my hands and knees on the floor, playing with dinosaurs, watching Peppa Pig, watching anything to do with dinosaurs on television, and in the playground. And now I just feel like I've just, you know, reached a different level. So I feel I've gone from the ridiculous up to the sublime. So pathways. Now, pathways, Danny is right, it is something that I am passionate about and have always been passionate. I've never had an issue with the change over to pathways. I firmly believed at the time that we needed to change. And I think any changeover always takes a few years before people, or before the members in this case, settle into it. But it's really difficult sometimes to know where to pitch or how to pitch a pathways presentation, because so many of you here tonight are at different levels. So I'm going to do fairly basic, but not too basic. And then I'm hoping we're going to have time for you to go into breakout rooms and let you discuss what you've heard and come up with any questions that you might like to ask as a result. But if I don't get on with it, we won't get to that stage. So let me start sharing my screen. All right, so you should all be able to see my screen now. And what we're doing today, we're going to look at level 1. Now, very brief look at level 1. We're going to look at the new level 1. We're going to look at completing a project and a level, excuse me, which is what seems to cause an issue for a lot of people. We're going to look at the evaluation resources, approval by a Basecamp manager of a level request, and registering a Pathways Award for the club, because as most people know at this stage, these are 2 different processes, number 5 and number 6. And if we have time, we'll have a look at those member reports. Oh, and I almost forgot the Q&A. All right, so I'm not going to dwell on the logging in. I have done this many, many times before. And what I would say is, if there's anyone here on the call tonight who has a difficulty logging in to Toastmasters.org, selecting a path, I'm going to ask you to put this into the chat. I know Brenda Lannon, our Club Growth Director, is monitoring the chat. And if you put it into the chat with your email, I will get in touch with you in the next day or 2, and I will go through the onboarding onto Pathways for you. I'm going to do it very briefly here. There are 2 ways of coming into Pathways. Log into Toastmasters.org, click on your profile, and this is the way, this is my preferred way. So your profile is up at the top where it says, it'll say welcome Patricia, or welcome Gerard, or welcome Danny, or whatever your name is, and then click on the tile, go to Basecamp. Or you can log into Toastmasters.org, click on Pathways, and then click go to Basecamp. And here we go. So if you come in through your profile, you'll see here's my profile up here. Welcome Patricia at the top. And then down here, I have the blue tile, go to Basecamp, and Balbriggan Toastmasters is showing there, and I just click on go. And once I do that, I immediately come into this screen here. And you'll see the top choice here is paths and learning, and that's my education transcript. And that is where all of my paths that I have that I'm currently working on are stored. Speech evaluations is under that, and that's where you find all the evaluations for your speeches. And they're in alphabetical order. And then we have tutorials and resources. There are lots of tutorials, lots of resources that you can use. So it's always worthwhile, as I say, to explore. Take your time sometime when you're some wet Sunday afternoon, when you have nothing else to do and you don't want to watch any football on the television, take your time and explore those tutorials and resources. So when you come in and you've clicked on the paths and learning, you come in and you'll find your path. So in this case, you'll see from me, motivational strategies, pathways mentor program, persuasive influence, presentation mastery, which I got in print form. And you can then go back and forth between your paths. You don't have to stick just to one path and work your way through it completely. You can start in one path, then you can do something in another path if you wish. So you can mix and match your path, and you can mix and match your projects as well. There is a little thing, but we leave that for the moment, but you can mix and match around. And I don't jump too much, but I jump a little bit from one to the other. And simply when you want to go to your path, so motivational strategies, I will click here on the open curriculum. And then it will come up and say launch. And I will launch. And that will take me into the path. So here we go here. Once I click on open curriculum, that will turn to my level 1. And you'll see each part of the level 1. Now this is pre the 27th of October. So you'll see icebreaker, evaluation and feedback, and researching and presenting. And then the level 1 completion. And you launch, you click on the burgundy button to launch each of these if you want to go in and have a look at what it says, have a look at what the assignment entails. And in there, you'll also find your evaluation resource, and you'll be able to decide what speech you want to bring to match that particular project. We're going to talk a little bit about level 1 in a moment. All right, so level 1. So this is pre-October 27th, 21, because as most of you will know, we now have a new level 1. They have changed it. So the existing or the old or existing level 1, which most of us will have in our paths, is an icebreaker speech, 4 to 6 minutes. Then you do project 2, evaluation and feedback, but there are 3 parts to project 2. The first part is a 5 to 7 minute speech. It should have a good evaluator, and it has to include a recommendation. Part B is the second 5 to 7 minute speech. And this is when you take on board that recommendation or that feedback that you got from the first one. And you can repeat that first speech, or you can do a new one, but take on board the feedback that you received. And then you get to evaluate a speech. And then that evaluation should be evaluated by another member. And this is to get you started, particularly for a new member, to get a new member started on doing evaluations. But for all of us, it's a nice reminder of just get us back into, how we should be doing evaluations, and giving us a little bit of a reminder that, you do need to think about an evaluation before you do it. And the third project in level 1 is researching and presenting. And this is about researching a topic, and it's 5 to 7 minutes. Now, 27th of October or the 28th of October or thereabouts, a new level 1 was launched. So every new member who joins your club from now on and downloads their path, they will have the new level 1. And any path that you buy from now on will also have the new level 1. So the new level 1. Okay, so this is your new level 1. The icebreaker is still there, 4 to 6 minutes. That hasn't gone away. The next is writing a speech with purpose. So anyone who remembers the Competent Communicator Manual, this is the project really about general and specific purpose, which I think was around level project 3 in the CC manual, although I may be wrong with that. So it's writing a speech with purpose. It's telling you that really you should be able to say what your speech is about in one sentence. So your speech will either have a general purpose, which would be to inform, to entertain, to inspire, or to persuade. And then it has that specific purpose. And you should be able to put that specific purpose into one sentence. It's a 5 to 7 minute speech. The next one is introduction to vocal variety and body language. Now, it's not both, although certainly you can put both in, but you can choose to do either a speech that incorporates vocal variety or a speech that incorporates body language. And again, it's 5 to 7 minutes. And then we come back to evaluation and feedback, which is exactly as it is in the existing level 1. The researching and presenting has disappeared and it's moved to an elective in level 3. And these are the projects. I'm not going to go through them again, but this is what they are. This is them written down again. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and evaluation and feedback again, broken down into A, B, and C. Okay, I think actually what I might do, I know I'm chopping and changing here, but I might do is, are there any questions on this part? If there are, if you could maybe put them in the chat. I think Brenda's going to monitor the chat. And I'll see if I can answer them, or I'll come back later and answer them. So if you have any questions at this stage about those 2 level 1s and what is involved in them, just put it in there in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to move on to, all right. So I see, I think there's one there. Is there, Brenda?
Sorry, Patricia, I'm having technical issues here.
Okay.
But there's a question. What is the relevance of evaluating someone else's speech after having been evaluated oneself?
All right, so this goes back to evaluation and feedback. Well, everybody, so evaluation is very much a part of Toastmasters, and we've always evaluated speeches. So every speech we do is always evaluated. So the relevance is that in this evaluation and feedback section, the relevance is that it's really, I suppose, for new Toastmasters, it's to give them the opportunity and the learning on how to do an evaluation. So the idea behind evaluation and feedback, this particular project, is that you do a 5 to 7 minute speech and you receive feedback from a good evaluator. And this is how you start to understand what feedback is and how you begin to understand how to take that feedback on board. You then come back, you do the same speech again or another speech, and you take on board the feedback. So the feedback could have been something like, maybe, you could have slowed down. Maybe you spoke too fast. So you take that on board and you repeat the speech or do another speech, and this time you try to slow it down, take on board the feedback. And then the idea is that having done that, you're now understanding what an evaluation is, and you get to do an evaluation yourself of another speaker, at some stage. It could be a week or 2 weeks time, or the next meeting or 2 meetings time. You take on the role of an evaluator, and that evaluation is evaluated manually by another speaker in the club, a member in the club. And it's just to give you feedback that you are doing your evaluation correctly or where you could have improved it. Okay, so I'm going to move on. We're going to go on to completing a project. Now, I know a lot of you are going to know this, but it is a stumbling block quite a lot of the time. To complete a project, you have to get a check mark against the project. I'm going to show you that on the next slide. In fact, let's go to the next slide and I'll show you. So you'll see here against the icebreaker, there's a little check mark. And that's how you know that you've completed a project. So we go over here then. To get the check mark, you have to go back into the project and scroll through until you come to assess your skills after. And if you take nothing else away, this is what you must take away. After every single time you complete a project, you must go back in and do the assess your skills after. It is simply a few statements that it will ask you to answer, and you answers about 4 or 5 of them, and you continue answering these until you get submit, and then you click on submit, and that will say congratulations, and it will give you that all-important check mark so you know that you have completed the project. If you don't want to scroll through, you can click on the down arrow in the box at the bottom of the screen, and I'll show you that in a moment. And at the end, you will see, or towards the end, you will see assess your skills after. So you complete this assessment, and then you will get the check mark, which will show you that you have completed the project. Okay, so there's the check mark against those 2 projects there. And if I go down further, here we go. So if you click on that down, when you go back into your project, when you click launch and go into the project, if you click on the down arrow here at the end, you will see at the very end, assess your skills after. And that's what you need to click on. And when you've done that, you answer these questions here, or these statements, and keep answering. There's 5 of them. Keep answering until it comes up with the burgundy submit, and you click on submit. And if you've missed out one of them, you won't get that submit. So you have to go back and make sure you answer each of them, and wait until you get that burgundy colored submit. And you click on that, and that brings you into the next screen. It will say congratulations, and that's when you get that check mark. So remember, when you complete a project, you must immediately go back into the, well, when I say immediately, I tend to do it the next night, that night, or the next day sometime. Go back into the project, use the arrows to scroll to, or click on the down arrow and complete and submit the assess your skills after. And this will give you a check mark against the project. And once you've done that, then you're ready to go with your next project. So when you've completed all of the projects then in your level, be it level 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, when you have completed all the projects, you then need to complete the level. So down here, you'll see level 1 completion, and you click on the burgundy button to activate that. And then you follow the steps. It's quite simple. Once you activate it, it'll turn to mark as read, or it'll turn to, it will turn to, it'll turn to level complete, then mark complete. Sorry, I knew it wasn't mark as read. It will turn to mark complete. All right, so let me go back. So you go back into the path, open the curriculum, click on the burgundy button opposite level completion. Click activate, then click the launch, and then mark complete. And you can move on to the next level because you're finished with your level 1, and everybody will go, hurrah, that's great, move on to your next level. And this is where the Basecamp manager takes it to the next step. All right, I just, because I confused the mark complete, I just go back. Okay, so when you've finished all the projects in your level, down at the end, you'll see level 1 completion or level 2 completion or level 3, etc. And here you'll see the burgundy button to activate. So you click on that burgundy button to activate it. That will turn to launch. You then click launch. And then it'll show you a few steps of how to do this. And then you click on mark complete. And when you have clicked on mark complete, you have completed that entire level. And now the Basecamp manager does the next step for you, and you can go on to your next level. All right, so I'm going to look in the chat now and see if we have any questions before I go on to the next start. All right, let me go back up here a little bit. Oh, okay. Okay, so there was...
Patricia, may I ask a question, please?
Yes, yes.
How many pathways can you work between in the course of a year?
Well, as many as you want. Sorry. So at the moment, I mean, look, so at the moment I'm working between two, motivational strategies, and I've started visionary communication, I think. Personally, I would probably recommend, all right, that if you're still a relatively new Toastmaster, or if you're still relatively new to pathways, that you maybe just work on one path. But if you are more competent with pathways, and if you have been a Toastmaster and you've quite a bit of experience, then it is fine. But for me, I think working on two paths is enough for me. I'm not sure that I would necessarily work on three paths at the same time, but certainly two. And the only reason I do that is because sometimes I might have a speech in my head that I want to do, but I need to fit it into a required project or an elective. And so I will go to a different path that I have and see if I can use an elective from a different path to fit it in there. Now, Katuta Lumpa has written down, there was something on dynamic leadership, and are they electives? Okay, so electives, so level 1 and level 2, there are no electives in levels 1 and 2. Electives don't come in until we get to level 3. So level 3, 4, and 5, we have electives. In level 3, you have one required project and 2 electives. Level 4, you have one required project and 1 elective. And level 5, one required project and 1 elective. And those choices, so the 2 electives in level 3 is out of a choice of about 12. The 1 elective in 4 and 5 is out of a choice of about 8 or 9, I think. And you should be looking at your electives to see what choices you have. So Teresa. Okay, so Teresa Murphy, you have put in the chat that you've just started the old pathway and you're on your second speech evaluation. Do you have to do the speech with purpose first? No. So the speech, writing the speech with purpose, there are people on this call who would say that every speech you write should be a speech with purpose, but writing the project to write a speech with purpose is going to only be in the new level, any new paths from the 28th of October on. So anyone who buys a new path from now on, or any new member starting in your club, they will get that new level 1, which will have that writing a speech with purpose. So for Teresa, you don't have to do that speech with purpose first. Do those who have completed? Yes. Yes.
Sorry, Patricia, can I ask a question in relation to the credit that's assigned to an individual club for a member who completes a level 1 from more than one path?
Okay.
So can the club only get credit for one of those levels?
Yes, so you have to be very careful about this because I've been caught myself. So you have to be particularly careful how you do it. You can, yeah, so, and that's why you have to be careful when you're mixing and matching projects and paths, because the club can only get a certain amount of credit for what you are doing. They can't get all of it. So it is level, so if I complete a level 1 now, and I give it to my club, and then I go into another path and I do a level 1 on that path. In order for me to go to level 2, or to go to level 2, I have to complete the level 1, but that level 1 will not be given because I already have a level 1. Okay, I'll explain that a little bit more when I come to the next part, because I know that's a bit complicated. I'll explain it a bit better when I come to the next part. So do those who have completed the old level 1, Linda, you said, do those who have completed the old level 1 have to do the new level 1? No. So the level 1 that you have in your path at the moment is the only level 1 that you have to do. But when you complete that path, and if you're buying a new path, then that will contain the new level 1, and you will do that new level 1. So the new level 1 will only be in anyone who buys a path from now, after the 27th or 28th of October. So for example, I have 1, 2, 3 paths at the moment, and each of those contains the old level 1. They're not going to change. So according as I've only done level 1 out of 2 of those paths. So for the third path, when I get to it, I will still do the old level 1 in that. So, okay, so Tony Cadwell, is it possible to move to the new Pathways 3 projects if you commenced prior to October 2021? You mean, is it possible to move to the new level 1? The answer to that would be if you've already selected your path. So Tony, maybe we could come back to that. Maybe if you put up your email address into the chat for me, I'll come back to you on that one. Okay, so Mary Whelan, if showing another Toastmaster how to choose a path, will they need a Toastmaster ID? Okay, so there are 2 ways. You can go without logging in, you can go onto toastmasters.org, and from the menu at the top, you can choose education, and in there you can choose pathways. And if you scroll down, you will see all 11 paths. And if you click on any of those, you will see the breakdown from level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if you click on each of those, you will see the electives. So you can use that to show a person, another member, give them an idea of what path they might like to select. And they don't need to be logging in as a member if you do that. So how many, well, you have to, so, okay, so how many, so Catherine asked, how many paths can you choose and go between during a year? All right, so during a year, it's entirely up to you how you work your paths. We are going to talk, and Brenda has raised this, about being a little bit careful, because you're not necessarily going to get credit for your club for some of the levels that you complete. Okay, so we will come back to that. But you are free to go between any path that you like, and you're free to go through the projects in any order that you want. Personally, in the main, I would suggest that you go through them in the order, level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The only time that I vary that is sometimes I will do something, I will have a speech in my head that will fit into an elective, and then I will do that. But the required projects at each of those levels, I do them in order. I don't jump around. I just find it just suits me better to do it in order. I probably just feel that I'm in more control of what I'm doing But you can do it, and you can you can work on several paths if you wish at the same time. But you're going to pay $20 for each path that you choose, that you download, apart from the ones that we already have. Okay, so Philip has asked, how do you complete the project when you evaluate someone else? So is this, I take it, Philip, is the evaluation and feedback? Okay, so the evaluation and feedback, this is a very good question, Philip. The evaluation and feedback consists of 3 parts. Part A is the first 5 to 7 minute speech, or it was the first 5 to 7 minute speech that is evaluated, and you get feedback on it. The next part is to repeat that speech or do another speech, taking on board the feedback you got. And then you get to evaluate a member of your club, another speaker doing a speech. That is all one project. And so when you finish each of those parts, or sorry, when you finish all 3 of those parts, you go back into that project and you go to the assess your skills after. And you complete that as I've already explained. And when you click the submit on that, then you will get the check mark against that project. So that particular project has 3 parts. You have to complete all 3 parts and then go in and do assess your skills after. Right, wow, there's a lot of questions here. So do you know what we're going to do? I'm going to move on. I'm going to make sure that we save this chat as well. So at this stage, in the interest of time, I'm going to, okay, actually, I'm just going to answer Nuala O'Connor's question first. And you're quite right, Nuala, we all do this. Sometimes members tend to forget to do is click submit. And quite often it happens with the initial assessment of skills. All right, so there are 2 assessments of skills. There's the assessment skills before, and then there's the assess skills after. You can choose to do the assess your skills beforehand if you want. That's entirely up to you. It has no relevance on completing the project, but you must do the assess your skills after. And if you find when you do the assess your skills after, you don't get that submit button, that means you haven't answered each of those 5 questions. And you can go back and back and back until you answer every one of those 5 statements or 5 questions, and until that submit comes up, and then you click on that submit. And then you get congratulations. So if you omit to click on the submit, you just go back in again and go back through the questions again and click submit. All right, so I'm going to move on now. And I will come back to those questions. So we're moving on now to the role of the Basecamp manager. So as we all know, the Basecamp manager is mainly it's the VPE, but it's also the club president and also the club secretary. So hands up, how many of you are Basecamp managers this year? Okay, well, a Basecamp manager, you need to understand what the role is. It's not a particularly difficult role to do, and it's not particularly difficult on top of the role of the VPE or the president or the club secretary. So let's go back. When a member completes all projects in a level, they activate the level completion icon. They mark it complete, and then this triggers an email to the club email address. And that alerts the Basecamp manager that they need to approve the level completion request. Now, clubs should have an email address. It should be a club email address and not necessarily a member's email address. If your club has a member's email address, I would strongly suggest that you change it to a generic address. So for example, Balbriggan Toastmasters is balbriggantm@gmail.com. And then just make sure that the committee has access to it, has the password for it. Because if you have, for example, if the Balbriggan Club had my email address, well, you know, if I turned around and left the club in a year's time, what's going to happen? How are you going to use that? All of that's going to come in and nobody else come in. All of these level completion requests will come to my email address and nobody in the club will have access to that. So really, it's very simple. If you don't have a generic email address for your club, I would strongly suggest you set it up. However, I would also suggest that when you have completed a level, let your VPE or your president or your club secretary know. Just tell them that, you know, I finished my level tonight. I've marked it all complete. So can you go in now and approve it for me? It's probably the quickest way to do it. But also, of course, the Basecamp manager can log in as a Basecamp manager, and they can go and they will see a tile pending requests. And they can click on that and they'll see any pending requests that are waiting to be approved. Okay, and that's it there. So if you log in as the Basecamp manager, so you will see this tile here, pending requests. And if you click on that, it will show you if there are any requests waiting to be approved. And to approve the request, you select the green check mark on the right. So you'll see across here the name of the person, the name of the member, level 1 completion or whatever level it is, plus the path. It's a completion, and you go over here and there's a green check mark and you click on that. Now, and then you can say that you can put in here that you approved it as the president or the VPE or the secretary, and you click on submit. Now, once the Basecamp manager has approved your level request, you will be credited with it. And you will receive a certificate of completion. But however, for your club to get the credit, the VPE has to register your award in the same way as he or she registers any education award. So it's a two-way process for the club. So the VPE, president, secretary, the Basecamp manager has to approve the level completion request, and then to credit the club with the award, they have to go back into Club Central and submit an education award. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing now. Now it's 1942. And the idea was that we were going to put you into breakout rooms and let you discuss between you what you've heard to date so you could come up with questions. But I am conscious that in the chat, there are quite a few questions. So clearly you had no problem coming up with questions. Right, so I'm going to go back up through these and continue on. I'm not going to touch, so there is another section to this called member reports, and this is for the Basecamp manager. But to be honest, I think you're probably overwhelmed with what you've got so far, judging by the questions here. So I'm not going to go to those member reports. All right, so we have somebody who said that her profile has been set up, Susie, who said her profile has been set up with her middle name, not your first name, and how can you change this? I think the only way you're going to be able to change this is to go to membership@toastmasters.org, email them and explain what has happened and ask them if they can change it for you. So it's membership@toastmasters.org. Okay, so Carmel, I'm going to come back to that question of yours now before I finish. So Jenny Harris, looking at my level 3, I have 2 ticks and 100% for elective projects. I guess you don't get a tick when electives are completed. Ooh, I don't actually know the answer, Jenny. I'm trying to imagine it now. I'm trying to see it in my head, but if it's showing you 100%, that would suggest that it's finished. But I'm going to ask you, did you go back into that elective, that particular project, and did you go to do the assess your skills after? So if you're there, Jenny, if you want to unmute and answer.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so when you went in and you clicked the submit and did the whole thing through.
Yeah, and it just, yeah, it comes up as the 100%. So
Okay.
yes, you don't get a tick.
To say, without seeing it, I can't even go back to think of what my own looks like. So I don't know the answer, but I'm going to mark that one down and find out what the answer is. But if it's saying 100%, that would suggest that it is, that you have done it. Have you done the required project at level 3?
Yeah, I've got the 2 ticks and the other bits and the electives.
Has it allowed you then to complete the level?
Pardon?
Has it allowed you to complete the level?
Yes. It was just when you were saying that you get the tick once you completed. It looks like on the electives you don't get a tick, you just get a percentage of what you've achieved.
Okay. All right, but thank you, Jenny. That's good for us to know.
Thank you.
Difference between elective and required projects. Okay, so when you move on to levels 3, 4, and 5, you will see that there is one required project at each. I think it's one required anyway, a required project for each. And that is, you have to do that. There is no choice about it. You have to do it. But they also have electives. So in level 3, you will do 2 out of maybe 11 or 12 choices that you can choose from. But you have to do the required project, and then you have to do the 2 electives as well. So the electives, so the required project you don't have a choice about. The electives are, as they suggest, they are choices, and you get to choose 2 from a range of about 12 or 13. That answers, I think, Teresa's question as well. All right, so we have one here on evaluations. Just wondering, with regards to evaluations, does the evaluator just send completed evaluation forms to SpeechMaker and they file them? They are not saved online. All right, so this is evaluations. Clubs will do this differently. And I think there was, when we moved to Pathways first, the idea was that evaluations, we would complete them online and send them to the speaker, and the speaker could put them into their profile, etc. I think for most of us, we have found that that just didn't happen. So what most of us do, or certainly what I do, is when I'm doing a speech, I send my evaluation resource. I email it to my evaluator, and my evaluator will fill it out, probably manually, and then scan it back to me. Or in the good old days, or the good new days, hopefully coming up, when we're back in person, will hand it to me, will handwrite it out and hand it to me. And I can choose to keep it myself if I wish, in a LibreArch file or whatever way I want to keep it. So you should have a system going within your club where either the evaluator will just automatically go to those speech evaluations and choose the correct evaluation for your speech, or I think really it's better if the speaker, because you know the speech you're doing, I think it's better if the speaker selects the evaluation and sends it to the evaluator, or brings it with them on the night when we're back in person again. I think the onus for me should be on the speaker. Okay, so Pauline said that she's just got into my Pathways, did the 5-question assess your skills after, but didn't get the tick beside the level. All right, Pauline. So you can unmute, and first of all, tell me that you confirm that you definitely got submit and you clicked on submit.
Patricia, I have had 2 direct messages from Nuala and Brenda, so they have sorted me out.
Okay,
so I've managed to do it. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's great. I'm not sure, Cian, you have put in that you may have 10 electives, but have to complete 4. I'm not aware that you have to complete, well, you mean over, no. So at level 3, it's definitely a required project and 2 electives. At level 4, it's 1 elective, and level 5, it's 1 elective.
Hi, Patricia. I was just replying to
Oh,
comment that was posted, so I was just giving an example.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, Cian, and apologies for that. So someone asked, is the Basecamp manager the go-to pathways person in the club? Okay, so we have 3 Basecamp managers in the club, the VPE, the president, and the secretary. Is the Basecamp manager the go-to pathways person in the club? I would say that in an ideal world, yes. But we're not necessarily in an ideal, well, we're not in an ideal world at the moment, but we're not necessarily even pathways in an ideal world. So if you have somebody in your club who is really good at pathways, then maybe that person would be the go-to person for pathways in your club. Ideally, if you can have more than one person in your club who is good at pathways, let them be the go-to person. So you're looking at people who have maybe completed a whole path, or got to level 4 or level 5. These are good people. These are people who know their pathways. And these can be the ones who will be helping the newer people to start into pathways. So it doesn't have to be the Basecamp manager. Joan, I'm laughing at your question. I'm not necessarily going to answer it because you'll have to go into the project and read it through. So what she asked was, how many words do you expect in one sentence with level 1 speech with purpose? It's a very good question. Go into the project when you get that level 1 and have a read of it and see what it says. Pathways manager is president, VP, or sec. So the pathways, the Basecamp manager is all 3. The president, the VP, and the secretary are the Basecamp managers. Each of the, and the reason for that is in case somebody got sick, one of them was sick or went away on holidays and wasn't there. So if it was only the VPE, and the VPE, like we know somebody here present at the moment is heading off to Australia soon for a few weeks. So if that was the VPE in the club, and that she was the only Basecamp manager, anyone who completed a project might not be able to have it approved if the Basecamp manager had disappeared off. So for that reason, we have 3 people as Basecamp managers in the club. And it's just a backup. So somebody here, oh, Danny has put that in. Great, thank you, Danny. Okay. Okay, so there's lots of useful tips coming up here as well. So thank you all very much.
Patricia,
Yes,
Philip has his hand up.
Philip. Yes, Philip, go ahead.
Yeah, earlier on you said if you've got a level 1 already, and then you do another level 1, the club doesn't get the credit. Does that apply to all the levels? So if you've got a level 3 here, you can't do another one.
Okay, so Philip, I'm going to come back on that. You have to be a little bit careful about when you do. So I suppose the best way I can describe that is if you have a level 1, Philip, right? And your club has got credit for your level 1 this year. You can go on to your level 2, level 3, level 4. You can do a level 2 from another project, provided you've done level 1. I'm really getting into this deep now, aren't we? Okay, so you've completed one level 1. And then you go to another path and you start a level 1 there. You will get credit for the level 1, yes, when you complete it, but your club won't. But if you do a level 1 in one path, you do a level 1 in another path, then you do a level 2 in the other path, you will get the credit for that, and the club will get the credit for that level 2. So you just have to be a little bit careful in that it's only in that year.
But then if you do the level 2 in the other path,
Correct.
The club doesn't get the credit for that.
It's only in that year.
In that, okay.
Okay. So it's only in the 1 year. So if you do a level 1 in, I don't know, motivational strategies in May.
So that sounds like the club can only get the credit for one path, or for the levels that constitute one path.
Well, no, because last year I actually got credit for levels in another path as well as in the existing, but the club had to forego my level 1 for credit. All right, because
So it's only the level 1 then.
the program, we needed a level 2. And so I did a level 2 so we could get credit for that and we could be distinguished. But I had to do a level 1 to get the level 2, and I didn't get credit for the level 1 because I already had it. I'd already been given it a month prior.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the other levels beyond.
Yeah, but the same thing applies. So, but if you look at the Distinguished Club program, Philip, you'll see that it's only 4 level 1s, 2 level 2s, 2 more level 2s, 2 level 3s, a level 4, and then a further level 4, a level 5 or DTM. So you're quite restricted. I mean, from the point of view of Distinguished Club, you can do any amount that you want, but if it's for the Distinguished Club program, you're quite restricted in how many of these projects you can get through.
Okay.
Sorry, Patricia, can I just clarify? So what you're saying is the club can actually get credit for both your level 1s, provided they're not in the same year. That's what you're saying. So if I completed a level 1 in a pathway last year, in the last Toastmasters year, and completed a level 1 in a pathway this Toastmasters year, the club can get credit for both of those.
Yes.
And the same with every other level.
Yes. Now I'm actually going to go and do a double check on this, and I'm going to send it to Danny and ask him to email everybody that's on that registration list to make sure that I am right, and I'll get the wording right. I have the wording from TI, but it's buried in my emails. And I'll have to go and pull it up. I just don't want to be giving you wrong information. But yes, because I know last year when I was having to do extra levels so that we could be distinguished, I actually contacted TI to be sure that I was going to get the credit that I needed. So what I'm going to do, although I suspect Brenda might know the answer to this, do you? I'm not putting you on the spot, Brenda, but the fact that
Patricia,
yes,
Larry here. I think Nola is right, which if you don't submit the 2 levels in the 1 year,
correct.
you hold a level 1 over to the following season, and you will get credit for it. But if you put the 2 in the 1 year, my theory on that is you will not get credit.
No, and that's
Yeah.
my understanding as well, Larry. And
Yeah.
I definitely have an email from TI setting that out very beautifully for me. So I will check it. I will definitely pull it up. No, that's my understanding. And so it may mean that sometimes you will get the credit for level 1, but the club won't. So you will get a credit for every level that you complete.
Yeah,
but
correct.
The club won't get it.
Yeah, that's right. That's my understanding as well now. So
Okay, so then it's not just
we
me.
could be wrong, but
No, I don't think we
no,
are, Larry.
I don't think so. Yeah.
In fact, I know I'm right. And the fact that Brenda actually asked this at the beginning, I know I'm right. And it's one that's not very clear. And it's not very clearly set out.
Patricia, can I ask, sorry, another question? And
Yeah.
it's a question, or it's like, say, for example, we have members who are dual members of lots of clubs, and some of them wish to make sure that they allot their levels to different clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And that can get a little bit tricky when it comes to helping them, especially if they're not au fait themselves with a whole system up on the website, and you're talking them through and trying to explain to them that they need to make sure that they're logged in as, or they have clicked the button as the club that they wish to allot the level to.
Yes.
Not level 2, but the level that they've just completed to. Isn't that right? And then they need to make sure that the person who's processing it does it quite quickly afterwards to make sure it doesn't get lost.
Yes, you are correct, Nola, but there is another way of an easier way for me of dealing with that. And that is that if I'm a member of 2 clubs and I do a level 2 in one of my, and a level 3 in one of my clubs, in one of them only, and I decide that I want to give the level 3 to the other club, I can simply just go to the other club, the VPE in the other club, and say, I have a level 3 for you. Can you do it and set it up, and I'll approve my you get them to approve it for you. So you can give it to, you're quite right, or you can go in, as you're saying, and you select the club you're giving it to. So you know when you go in to your profile and you go to your Basecamp and it shows up, for me, Patrick and Toastmasters, if I click on the down arrow, it'll show up society. So if I want to give a level there, I can do that. I can select society and give my level to them. But I know I got tripped up last year on this newly because somebody, a member in the club, and this is why I had to go jump through all sorts of things to try and get the distinguished club program finished, because somebody that I thought was going to give a level 2 to us gave it to another club, which was fair enough. They were quite entitled to do it. But we had made the mistake of not checking it first. But it was given to another club. Okay, so I am conscious now that it's 8 p.m., but I'm also conscious that there are quite a few questions here. So Danny, can I suggest that we, I'm actually going to save the chat. Oh, it's not, oh, it is letting me. So I'm going to save the chat and I'm going to go through the questions. I'm going to reply to them and I'm going to send them to you, Danny. And then they can be sent out to everybody who registered or who was on the call.
Sure.
Because certainly there's a lot more questions than we may have anticipated. And it's, you know, I'd rather get to them and answer them.
Patricia, just one thing there. Say, we have a lot of experienced Toastmasters here tonight and all over the world. And we have done, those of us that were on the old curriculum, and we done our icebreaker. And now we're back in pathways, and each level, each project you select, say for instance, innovation and planning and presentation mastery, there's an icebreaker to be done on each level 1. It sounds a bit ridiculous, really, to be doing an icebreaker every time you go into a pathway. Or would you suggest using that icebreaker, say leadership, for instance, do the icebreaker on leadership more so than an actual icebreaker telling about yourself?
Yeah, Larry, my view on this is that once, you know, when we had the old pre-pathways, I would have done quite a few CCs, competent communicators. So once I got my DTM, I just kept doing competent communicators, which meant that I was doing an icebreaker every time. So it wasn't alien to me to suddenly find myself having to do an icebreaker every time I started a new path. And once you've done that icebreaker where you're really introducing yourself to your fellow members, you're quite right, you know, and it doesn't say that it has to be about yourself, the icebreaker. So you can do it and you can vary it around. You could do it on something, as you said, on leadership, and maybe just, it could be you and leadership. And so you can, it doesn't have to be, I suppose, the icebreaker that we associate with the very first speech that we make, the wonderful icebreaker that we all love. But also remember that when you do an icebreaker as an experienced Toastmaster, it is great for the newer Toastmasters because you're going to do it with a proper structure, a really good structure. And you're also going to do it with that wonderful purpose that we spoke about earlier. You're going to do it with that as well. So, you know, it's good for other members to see that and to hear that. So I don't have a problem. And you know, every time I've done an icebreaker, I've always found something else in my life that I can talk about. Because you can't pack your whole life into one icebreaker. So there's always one section, another section that you can speak about in an icebreaker.
Yeah, true indeed. Thank you, Patricia. Yeah.
Elizabeth's got her hand up.
Sorry? Elizabeth, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, Patricia. Thoroughly enjoyed this. As you know, I'm also like your pathways enthusiast. And I wanted to, I've got 7 paths in my portfolio, so I'm very, very serious about this. But I wanted to touch on Larry's question because this comes up all the time. When you get an icebreaker, and I've done this like 7 times in pathways, it really, I always say it's an opportunity to, as Patricia said, tell the club something different about myself. And because we've done it so many times, the structure of it and the content is different. I find it so exciting having to do an icebreaker every single time. And I really want to share some of that enthusiasm, because I see people saying all the time, why do we have to repeat it? See it as an opportunity. I've told people I've got a black belt in karate, I'm a member of the Hedgehog Preservation Society, which made them laugh. Every time it's something different. So rather than see it as a nuisance or why do we have to keep repeating it, see it as an opportunity to say something different about yourself, but also show how you can do an excellent short speech. So definitely I would say, don't just discard it. It can be great fun. I just wanted to add that bit.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Elizabeth. You know, the icebreaker is lovely. It is wonderful. And also, if you look at pathways at the moment, and it's 8:05, by the way, but if you look at pathways at the moment, as you get on into levels 3 and 4 and 5, the projects don't necessarily give you the opportunity to do a speech about, I don't know, something as simple as part of your life, as Elizabeth has said. So for example, if I want to talk to you about my dog, I'm not sure you want to listen to it, but if I do want to do a speech about my dog, it's really difficult to put that speech into any of the other levels. So the icebreaker is a great place to put it into. So one of these years, somebody's going to get a speech about my dog as an icebreaker.
Let me know when you're doing it. I call it.
Sorry to interrupt, Patricia. I think possibly we do need to bring it to a conclusion now, because we did promise 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Can I just hand over to Brenda?
Thank you very much, Dan, and very much, Patricia. A really beneficial session. What I
Sounding like a darling.
Brenda, sorry, you're breaking up really badly. Sorry, your sound's just
like a Dalek
at all. So go back over to Danny. Do you want?
Okay, Brenda was just going to give a vote of thanks, so I'll do it. And I'd like, on your behalf, to thank Patricia tonight for a very detailed presentation. And it is, as we all know, an incredibly complicated area. And I think she's done really well to be able to show us how to get onto Basecamp, how to Basecamp manager. And I think from the number of people who've attended, this has probably been about the best attended training session we've had. I think possibly we need to think about putting another one on to cover some other areas of pathways. So I would like, on your behalf, to thank Patricia for her time. We will be sending out the recording and any presentation and Patricia's answers to those questions. But I think she's dealt with a difficult subject with great humour and with great detail. And so thank you very much for that, Patricia. Thank you.
You're very welcome, so you are. And you know, Danny, on that subject, can I just say that I know when a couple of years ago, I think it was, we did something that was very successful in Pathways. And what we did was we actually asked members to submit questions in advance. And then we simply spent the hour replying to those questions. And there was more than myself on that. I can't remember. I think so. There were 1 or 2 or 3 of us who did it. But it meant the questions came in advance and everybody could register. And we just went through all of those questions.
Sounds like a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll definitely come back with the answers. There were 2 definitely major questions, and I will get the full answer for you, and I will send them out, send it to Danny. So Danny, thank you very much, and thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia.
Good night, everybody. Next week we've got marketing, a two-week session on marketing. So please sign up for it. Good night, and thank you.
Thanks, everybody.